So there are pros and cons to both options, repairing it or taking out the dam. So tonight we want to get public comments on that. So we retain Interfluve to look at, what happens if the dam is taken out. Are there creative ways to put river back to its natural state and still have the fishing available? So at this point I want to turn over to Interfluve and let them kind of go over the work they've done so far and opportunities if the dam is removed.
Okay.
Beth?
Thank you. My name is Beth Wenzel. I'm an engineer, civil engineer with a focus on water resources, and I work for Interfluve. Just so you know, Interfluve is a very small consulting firm, so you've probably never heard of it before tonight. All we do is river enhancement and restoration work. So every single project that we do is really focused on the rivers. So we've done quite a few dam removal projects, dozens. I don't think we're up to 100 yet, but we'll get there probably within a few years. We also do a lot of habitat work, improving the quality of rivers for fish and other wildlife. So I'm really looking forward to continuing to meet and mingle with those of you that are interested in fishing. If you have a lot of sediment built up behind your dam, and if there's contamination in that sediment, then if you want to remove that dam, your costs go way up because you need to excavate all that material, haul it off, special handling. So that can be a huge cost item. The good news is that through our study, what we found is that one, there's really not very much sediment that is in the main channel. And two, the sediment that is there is relatively clean. And I say relatively because there is some contamination in it, but within most of the impoundment, it's very comparable to what you would see in a typical urban river. And according to the DNR, they don't have any concerns about allowing that material just to continue where it would have gone if the dam wasn't there, which is downstream. In some of the peripheral areas, there are some other contamination issues that are going to be dealt with by others, regardless of whether or not the dam is removed or left in place. So it's kind of a separate issue that we don't need to spend a lot of time talking about. So that brings us to where we are now, which is the start of this public engagement process. Our intent at this point and over the next month, 2 months, few months, is to really make sure that we understand the interests and concerns that you have and your neighbors have regarding what happens if the dam is removed. So we want to understand what those interests and concerns are, talk about alternatives to address those concerns, and make sure that if we do go down this path of dam removal, that we create an amenity that really is a benefit to the community. The other thing that we'll be doing through this process is answering whatever questions we can at this point about your interests and concerns. What might the river look like if the dam is taken out? And we have some ideas just based on our sediment study about how that river might evolve and what it will look like. Another big question that I know a lot of you have, how do our fishing opportunities change? And this is the start of that conversation. We're going to continue it for the next few months. I hope some of you will be engaged in a more in-depth advisory committee to flesh out some of that discussion and those alternatives, so we can come up with something exciting. And then, of course, another big question is cost. What is this going to cost if we go this route? Because, of course, that's one of the main reasons that we're exploring this is, just to be able to compare this alternative to a dam repair alternative. So that's where we are, and we'll be around for a while yet tonight, so please come and find me and ask your questions, and we'll keep talking.
Do you have anything else you want to add, or Tim?
Just one thing, as Beth alluded to, this is kind of the first step in our process here. I've got some forms over here. We're going to form a citizen advisory committee. We'd like to, anybody that's interested in being part of that, we'd like you to fill out a form and either return it to me tonight or get it back to me sometime next week. That group's going to meet over the next few months, 2, 3, 4 times, whatever we need to do to kind of talk through some of the issues that Beth just described. And then ultimately, as we take that input from the group and we start to shape what the community might want to see with a potential dam removal project, from there we'll come back and have another meeting similar to this, where we'll be able to share with a group kind of what came out of that advisory committee. So I've got some forms up here. Again, I can take them tonight, or you can return them to me later. I've also got, if you haven't signed in, make sure you sign in before you leave tonight if you would. And beyond that, we'll be available to answer whatever questions and kind of talk through things at each of these stations as you'd like. Yes?
Would it be helpful for folks to indicate some topics that they hope get addressed in this whole process?
Yeah, I think certainly, as we look at different
as a
locations, we
group?
could.
As a group, could we do that, or is that not appropriate?
Well, I think the idea was where everybody just, we'll be around the boards, we'll take notes, or
Okay.
staff will take the notes on as we go. Justin?
Paul, I wonder if it'd be beneficial just to take 5 minutes and specifically pictorially you're showing what the projected impact would be with the river, with the dam out, with how far away from the sides, what the depths are gonna be, and just kind of explain what those two boards really are saying. So I just think it would help to hear that, as you get started here. Because I think the biggest issue is what happens from Centerway down. The plaza's gonna come out, what does that change? How does it change all the way down to Monterey?
Yeah, so afterwards, you come up, look at this board. So this one shows, the dark blue line is the existing water elevation, that's what we call median elevation, so that's what the river average flow is. Half a year it's higher than that, half a year it's lower than that. And then the dashed blue line underneath it is what we're projecting once the dam, if the dam is taken out, what happens to the water level. Obviously the impact is more by the dam, and it's negligible by the time you get to the Centerway Dam, so it kind of varies throughout that. In downtown areas, maybe 6 inches or so, I think, right?
The model showed it at 4/10 of a foot through downtown, through the
Yeah.
downtown corridor, kind of between the walls, if you will.
Right. So as far as the width goes, where the walls are, it's pretty much matching the walls in terms of the width of the river. As you get past where the walls, it starts to narrow down, and it varies as you get closer to the dam. Obviously, it gets back to its original course. But through downtown, it's still, the river's still wall to wall.
Right, but you got some significant areas around by Monterey, the bay in there, the football area. And I
Right.
just want to make sure everybody understands.
Yeah, that's hard to describe here. When people come up to the station, you can kind of see the depth of the line here showing. That's where we'll show it a little easier on the drawings. Like I said, it varies.
Yeah, I mean, the bottom line is, we would be going from an impoundment situation to a natural river, and so the overall width of that river, we would expect to, be comparable to what we see downstream. Now, at this point, this is still some pretty cartoony. I mean, we haven't done the design or the analysis, and we don't wanna, give the impression that this is what it's gonna be. This is sort of an idea of what might happen on its own without much design, over the long term. So there's a lot of flexibility to, incorporate some of your ideas for what we'd like to see. But while, making sure that we understand some of the kind of natural laws of how rivers move and evolve over time. So, but I know that there will probably be a lot of questions, and so feel free to grab me and we can point out specific things on that map too.
Now, have they figured out the cost of, let's say, down in front of the rock down there at Monterey Dam? They're saying that where that area is, that's all sludge, right in front of the rock, in the
Bay
area.
Mm-hmm.
All right, if that's, what is that gonna be made into? What is it gonna be? The cost of it.
We're at that point yet. So that's kind of, the purchase tonight's meeting is really more of an open house, we're here to answer
Okay.
questions on the site, and there's still a lot of work to be done, and that's the type of, those type of questions you're posing are good, and that's what we're gonna keep track of tonight, and that's what the advisory committee are trying to address over the next, 3 or 4 meetings in the next couple months.
And I guess I'd add to that, really what we want to do is, the mindset going into it is that if you take the dam out and you do nothing there, it's going to be relatively mud flat and not much. But the intent would not be to do nothing there. So the intent is, with a blank slate, what does the community want to perhaps see there? Do we want to see it converted to some sort of wetland with boardwalks that move through there as an outdoor lab for the kids at the elementary school there? Do we want it to see any number of opportunities? And that's where we're hoping to get input from folks throughout the evening over the next hour or half hour we have here to understand what might your vision be for what we can do there and some of the other locations uptown. Because as it was mentioned, the river channel is going to become narrower as you get to the area downstream where there's these flatter areas on the side. Those all create opportunities. We want to understand what you guys might like to see from those opportunities. So that's the thought tonight, is to really allow everyone the opportunity to kind of have an open dialogue as we move through this.
Before we keep going forward, that cost will be, the cost of converting that into whatever will be added on to removing of the dam.
It becomes
So
part of the total project cost.
total the package, so we can compare leaving it and taking it out and redoing a lot of the river.
But
part.
that's,
So the thought is, as we create this advisory committee,
Okay,
and the vision for what that area might look like and other areas might look like, as we fine tune that and lend some shape to that, then we can start to refine some costs for those things. Right now, it's so open-ended, to try and assign a real cost to it is pretty difficult. Depending on what we want to do there, obviously, there's a lot of options. As we refine those costs, as we refine the goals, we can refine the costs, and then we can come back, after we've met with this advisory committee, we can come back in January with a group like this, and hopefully more folks, to talk about, okay, now we understand, this is what we've heard people want, this is what we think it might cost. And we know right now the cost of a repair project is X. So now we can start to understand the dynamics of that. And we also can start to factor in the potential available grants from the DNR and other sources to offset the cost that might come along with the community vision. So that's what we're hoping to do this evening.
because I know that down on the bike trail down by Lions Beach, my friend and I found a conservation corps that was put up probably in the 70s or 80s, Wisconsin Conservation Corps, that put up a bench. And we cleared it out around there. The city or nobody ever took care of it. And you talk about bird watching, that would have been an ideal thing, because the creek goes right by it, but it was never, nobody knew it was there.
I appreciate that. All right, so we'll be around at this different stations, they were answering more detailed questions. Thank you.